Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept Study by Neely Fuller Jr. We are covering the final bits of Area 9, War/Counter War, pages 390 to 399. And I just thought some recent events served as a great reminder of what we should be trying to do here, and what I am trying to do here, which is to put an end to the race war. Because white people are very, very serious about continuing the practice and working and maintenance on the system of racism and white supremacy. Case in point, Mr. Travis Owens and two of his white supremacist buddies who were plotting to attack the Democratic National Convention. I believe that's what DNC stands for, or Democratic National Committee, with explosives and rocket launchers. And they were a part of a group that they just celebrated and glorified direct violence, the practice of white supremacy, working on white supremacy in the form of direct violence is what they were basically up to. And this guy, Travis Owens, he seen it looks like the usual suspects are sacrificing him, because although they're talking about killing non-white people, attacking them, and almost like it's a video game, because right here you will see one of the white supremacists saying, "I want a full auto scar H," almost like, this is a video game. But no surprise, because these people referenced another white supremacist terrorist, Brennan Tarrant, who killed think about up to 50 people in New Zealand, the Christchurch massacre. So they reference him in their chat. But the author of this article, he used some really telling words. He says that looks like they were planning for a race war. But this is a white male, looks like, but maybe incorrect. But if he's white, he should know that the race war is already on. White people have started it a very long time ago, and they're the only ones winning the war, to say the least. Yeah, so we're trying to put an end to this war, trying to produce a system of justice, which is the only way we can, end the war. But white people are very serious. This is a very recent event. So, and this article also mentions that they're like the association with many white supremacist groups, and they use Facebook and those kind of forums to mingle, and they say very, very telling things. And yeah, I would definitely give this article a read. And it looks like they have the means of making like their own like makeshift weapons, and how they have access to all this stuff. But white people are very serious about racism and white supremacy, and this is why we should be serious about counter racism. Yeah, but I'll edit there. But does anyone have any thing they'd like to comment on or share from any portion of what we read?
I just wanted to comment on this. Can I be heard? Okay. I just want to comment on this. I think I want to bring attention to how this is a active duty U.S. Marine. So supposedly the people who go over and fight for our, in quotes, right to freedom or freedoms, So these are those kind of people. So a lot of times when, for those of us who may practice counter racism or whatever you want to call it, sometimes we are met with, these people are going over there and fighting for our freedoms. These people are doing this and that for you, blah, But this is an active duty U.S. Marine conspiring to eliminate a number of non-white Black people, which for me just means he is trying to practice racism, white supremacy to its fullest extent. That's what I wanted to comment on that. Yep, to be expected under a system of racism, white supremacy. And it's amazing too how this I have not seen anything about this. I shouldn't say it's amazing. It's not surprising at all, because under a system of racism, white supremacy, got to keep the confusion and deceit going. Got to keep everyone thinking that these U.S. Marines are out there fighting for us, doing all that they can for non-white Black people like myself, doing all that they can to protect us. Evidently not. So, not surprising.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for that very constructive input. I think you're very correct, and this person wanting to practice white supremacy to a very, very, very high degree in the form of direct violence. So I think again, this concept, maximum emergency compensatory action, I think it's a very interesting concept, and especially after reading this portion of the text, I'm almost I'm even more intrigued because of how strict, if I can even call it that, how strict this concept is. Of course, you can't determine its effectiveness or its constructiveness at this point in time, but definitely seems constructive and very, very serious as well. And I think it would be oh yeah, and although the concept is very, very strict, it's still not that hard to understand what it is attempting to accomplish and what it represents. So the code, or Neely Fuller says here on 391, one of the basic principles of maximum emergency compensatory action is that all executions are enacted by one non-white person who enacts them, including the execution of himself or herself. An act of a maximum emergency compensatory action is considered maximum emergency compensatory action only if conducted in such a manner that a victim of racism acting openly and alone executes one or more persons who practice white supremacist racism, one or more persons who practice white supremacy racism. Oh, my bad, I may have just read that twice. And also immediately thereafter executes himself or herself. If he or she executes or maims any other persons in, or if he or she is executed or maimed by any other persons, it is not maximum emergency compensatory action. When maximum emergency compensatory action is enacted, only racist or white supremacists are executed, and all executions are enacted by one non-white person who completes the enactment by executing himself or herself. The combined acts thus produce the correct compensatory meaning with the correct interpretation. The completed sequence of acts is the only way for the acts to have the correct value. Yeah. Very interesting that it seems that no, there are dozens of guidelines to this concept, but then we are not the only person who can even determine if it was Mecca. It's a person who enacted it. So really interesting. Would appreciate to get a further understanding of why that is, but of how one is able to gain the correct value from this concept if we are so limited in discussing if whether a person did it enacted Mecca or not. But I think this section actually probably made sense of that. So maybe I'm in error. Well, was there folks who wanted to share?
Yeah, so kind of following, the theme of last week, seems like Mecca is a very big part of counter war / counter war. I did enjoy this section because it kind of clarified Mecca, kind of just, finished it off nicely, and like the requirements when talking about Mecca and what to do when discussing Mecca. I did enjoy on page 393, says make certain that you limit all that you say about maximum emergency compensatory action to the following: just describing what Mecca is, 2, describing what Mecca is not, and 3, making no remarks about what is said to be specific events that appear to be maximum emergency compensatory action. Describe only what was done. Note, according to the compensatory code, it is best that a non-white person not do anything in regards to maximum emergency compensatory action other than the aforementioned. So this kind of reminds me about the conversation we were having last week with Mr. Williams when we were discussing, how do you know what if that person was intending to enact Mecca, so he kind of explains that, and it kind of just leaves you at that point where you never really know. You can never really know if their intentions were truly to enact Mecca or whatever it was. All you can do is mention what Mecca is, what it's not, and that and making no remarks about what it appeared to be. While reading this section, I just thought in my head, what does it look like when a white person is enacting something like Mecca? I suspect that doesn't exist, but what does it look like when a white person is enacting Mecca? That was a question I had that I had while I was reading this section. Yeah.
Yeah, I would see I would attribute like a white supremacist Mecca as just like a mass shooting or something like that, which would be killing for fun and glory and the practice of white supremacy instead of killing to produce instead of killing for justice, so it would have to be some sort of opposite, and yeah, especially mass shootings that specifically target non-white people. I think that would be there. But yeah, but I think it's best to say it's probably they don't have a maximum emergency compensatory action because they're the ones in total comfort and total control and the dominant power position. So it's no really no emergencies that they can't get help from.
And the system is so codified that it just writes them off as a lone wolf every time and refines itself.
Can you repeat that, Ray/10? You said it writes them off as what?
Yes. The system is so codified that it writes that particular white supremacist off as a lone wolf.
Mhm.
Then it refines itself. That's what it's done each and every time. You know, think about the Las Vegas shooter.
Mhm.
Lone wolf, Dylan Roof, lone wolf, Timothy McVeigh, you know, lone wolf. And the system just refines itself again and again.
That's a very good point. You know, because when I was thinking about it, and and with like the conditions for Mecca, you're supposed to end your life, and I'd been like noticing that a lot of these mass shootings, like right afterwards, the white shooter will end his life immediately afterwards. So I thought it was very strange. And I'm not saying in all instances or all cases, but a lot of the cases I've been witnessing, they choose to end their life right afterwards. Um, thinking,
Allegedly,
yeah,
you know, maybe it's ended for them. Maybe the system, you know, white sacrifice confusion.
mhm,
You know, we don't know what we read, what the white supremacists allow, you know, to be put out.
mhm.
Well said. Yeah, and also I think a lot of these lone wolf labeled shootings definitely have accomplices, like how they get the guns, who manufacture the guns, who allow the people to have the guns, especially that Las Vegas shooting. It seems like there is more than one person involved, but I digress.
Ooh, when you talk about the Las Vegas shooter, is that the one that happened like a few years ago where I think he was sniping people out of a hotel window, wasn't he?
No, I think
That one would be Stephen Paddock. He was like the 50-year-old white male, and I believe he was in a tragic arrangement with an Asian female too.
Let's see.
yeah, I don't know how many people were said to be killed, but yeah, white people. Yeah, that's probably a good segue into read one of the bits I had highlighted, because these mass shootings indicate the reality, the truth that white people have made killing fun. People glorify killing. You know, I play video games and I have fun killing people. I am attempting to correct that aspect of my behavior, but it's just the proof that this is very accurate. What is going to be read again from the code book, the United Independent Code Book by Neely Fuller Jr. It states here on 392, maximum emergency compensatory action is very peculiar act. It is very peculiar in that the only person that can correctly be guilty of promoting it is the person who actually commits an act that fits that description. The concept of maximum emergency compensatory action is deliberately intended to remove all thoughts of fun or glory from the concept and practice of deliberate death making. Teaching people that killing is fun should never have started. Killing and dying as a result of having been killed is not fun. It is insanity. In addition, in any situation dominated by white supremacist races, sanity does not exist. Since maximum emergency compensatory action is a justifiably insane act against suspected racists, war criminals, white supremacists who are also criminally insane, it is therefore those criminally insane racist war criminals who are to blame for the conditions that produce the justifiably insane act of maximum emergency compensatory action. One of the basic lessons of maximum emergency compensatory action is that there is nothing to be gained by killing people nor by mistreating people. Killing people, deliberate death making within the system of white supremacy racism have been made to appear as something normal. It has been regarded as thrilling and or heroic. It has been deliberately made to seem like fun. It has inspired people to kill for purposes of producing so-called glory. So yeah, it's very accurate, I suspect, and I also believe that the system is as described here, and Mecca is the only form, the only correct, justifiable form of killing, perhaps this concept. But maybe incorrect. The code may be incorrect. Were there folks who had stuff to share that they highlighted before I continue?
Yeah, I wanted to add, for me, I really started to notice that, under system racism, white supremacy, the fun and the glory that is attached to killing, I never really noticed it until starting counter racism. I witnessed, I had the faint idea or concept like, oh, this, why are some of these TV shows so gory? Why that was unnecessary. They didn't need to do that. But really understanding racism, white supremacy, and the necessity to make killing look fun and glorious. I understand the necessity for counter war. Just wanted to add that. Yeah, that's why I wanted to add that.
Yep, Area 3 is a prime example of the glorification of death and killing, and yeah, the one movie I always reference when talking about this sort of stuff is Natural Born Killers. That's a good example right there. And I remember too, like the increase, like the shift when like TV shows just became more graphic, and everything became more like grim and violent, from kids shows to like so-called family movies. Everyone flocks to see these Disney movies, but those are kind of violent, and they also celebrate death and massive destruction, which is the insanity we have been made to think is normal and entertaining.
Yeah, I think that's also part of the system, because even when you're talking to victims, they all believe, and for a very long time myself believed, like killing's just a part of life. Death is natural, but taking somebody's life unjustified, that is not correct, and we shouldn't all be viewing it as something that's correct. I mean, people think that in order for us to, for lack of a better word, enjoy or experience the American concept over here, that people need to be dying overseas, and people need to be suffering, to be greatly mistreated. And I think that's severely incorrect thinking. I think it's insane thinking to think that you can't have a constructive existence at the expense of somebody else being mistreated.
Yeah, it's also kind of like the reality where people practice that zeroistic thinking, which is believing that white supremacy can't be eliminated and justice can't be established. People have just been so conditioned and programmed so away from thinking about actually living in a just world, where people who are attempting to produce a just world are often painted as the insane ones, where the well, we actually are, but where the more insane ones are like seen as correct thinking, which is just like adds more and more layers of the insanity to the system. If you get what I'm saying. So yeah, I think I really appreciate this concept because it really removes the elements of death being fun, death killing being fun, like a sport. And it really is it's a really strict concept. There's like on page 394, there's about 13 tenets, bullet points are like characteristics. So it actually says think, speak, and or act to promote the following characteristics of maximum compensatory action. So I guess these are 13 characteristics of maximum emergency compensatory action. They're all very constructive. I would suggest everyone listening get your copy of the United Independent Compensatory Code System concept at producejustice.com so you can have access to the full text and to all of these characteristics, because I'm only going to read one, which is number 11, which states a victim cannot enact maximum emergency compensatory action under any circumstance where it is known that any other non-white person may be harmed, killed, injured, or have his or her possessions destroyed or damaged as a direct simultaneous result of the act. So, a person really has to be methodical and serious when enacting it, because you can't have any casualties. When white people practice war and direct violence and kill people, they have no problem. They have no problem producing casualties. Children, females of all ages, males of all ages have often been slain, exploded, shot up, and have been labeled as a casualty of war. But when someone is trying to practice this concept, that there can't be any of that. It has to be really, really efficient, which is just shows the just interesting and what I believe to be correct thinking that Neely Fuller Jr. has been able to have to produce this concept. Mr. Ray 1/0.
Yes, I would like to read number 6. When destruction of one or more of the most deliberate and most powerful of non-just people is necessary, it should be done suddenly and without any chance given to him or her to be saved or to save themselves. To give such non-just person a chance would be to make a sport of the act of deliberately destroying organisms whose existence and meaning may not be understood. To make a sport of the destruction of any creation is incorrect destruction. It also promotes killing for fun or for other unnecessary purposes. That right there stood out to me because I don't have the article in front of me, but earlier this week, I read that the non-white tribal chiefs down in Brazil are begging for help because the Brazilian government is cutting off mass amounts of the Amazon forest. And if anyone doesn't recognize how important those particular organisms are, the Amazon forest is where the earth gets most of its oxygen from. So I think that's all of our problem. That's all I have.
Wow. Thanks for sharing. Very tragic, very alarming and disturbing to me because I suspect, the white supremacists will continue destroying the planet. And if we don't solve the problem ASAP, we will live in a future where one may have to buy oxygen from a vending machine. So we should want to produce justice ASAP because white people are all about power and control. You know, they don't really care about producing this thing called life, balance between people, a world without suffering and misery. They don't believe in that. They want to they want to sell us oxygen in the future, because they can if you don't produce a system of justice. I may be incorrect, but you know, they sell water already. I mean, you need that to live. So
Yeah, I wanted to comment on that as well. Very good, very great points. For me, one thing I noticed is particular with this is how many documentaries and how much profit they make off of these things. I mean, we have so many documentaries about the natural disasters occurring, the climate change. We have, you know, the ocean, the ones about the oceans, the coral reefs, the Amazon. The list goes on and on. They find some suspected racists, set them up, they spew all their knowledge and whatnot about it, but they're not actually doing anything. And for me, that just seems like an opportunity for them to make some money, off of off of the issues that they're creating. And like O5 said, you know, they they plan on selling us oxygen. I mean, they're perfectly aware of the issues that they are creating and causing. Rather than doing something about it, they create these documentaries, these movements, to where they get people talking about it, but not actually doing anything about it. So I think it's very interesting how how this kind of continues to go on and the cycle repeats itself. And I'm just thinking about in terms of like killing and sport and glory, how many documentaries they make off of somebody being assassinated, and then like for instance, like Biggie or Tupac. I don't know if those killers have been found or what, but you know they'll make maybe three of those a year, you know, and the killer's never been found. These people have been shot dead, and the killer's never been found. And they just continue making it. They'll find another director, another white guy, who is suspected racist to make another one, to keep making the movie, to keep making the money off of it, keep the glory and the mystery going, as Mr. Fuller would put it. So that was just something that I noticed and I found very interesting, very tragic.
yeah, I think that also falls into the commodification of Black Death, which I I started to realize when all these rappers started to die, and then all this like music would start coming out after they were dead. I was like, oh, this is just come out of Black Death commodification, Negro philia, that sort of thing. And also, I would say that Biggie and Tupac murderers were not found, but they are known, and they are white supremacists, or they were commissioned by white supremacists for certain. I suspect.
I wanted to. That's something too. You brought up something that that's a part of my personal code. I don't listen to any like artist post humorous record or anything like that. I think it's absolutely incorrect for these people to be releasing their music or doing whatever with their. I don't even know if they made those songs or not. For me, it just seems like they're not allowing those souls to rest. You know, I find that also interesting. And like you said, a commodification of Black Death. I mean, DMX wasn't even, you know, he didn't even pass for a week, and they already announced he's got an album coming out. You know, they do that. They did that with who is it? Pop Smoke. Yeah, I think they did the same thing with him. A couple weeks later, after he passed, he's got an album coming out. Like this has to be insane.
Yeah, I think that's a refinement of white supremacy in the area of labor and economics and war as well. Yeah, and it definitely has always been happening. It's been happening forever, but we're just able to realize in this era with the with the rappers, but I'm sure it's been happening since
That is kind of true. Where I think DMX, he's been clean off of drugs, but he died from a drug overdose, and the person that found him was his white manager. So it's just kind of off how unexpectedly he died of overdose if he was supposedly clean.
Yeah, right. Yep, and not the first time a black entertainer has been found dead with allegedly with drugs in their system by a white manager. So this is all very suspect. We should always be suspicious of what's really happening behind the scenes, and we should always expect the involvement of racist man and racist woman. Well, I do at least. So were there parts from the text that folks wanted to share or discuss before I chime in a little bit more? Alrighty. So I guess we'll cut this one a little brief. Yeah, I'm just gonna talk about 397. And it says here, question: what is one of the best things to say if you are asked, do you ever intend to commit the act of maximum emergency compensatory action? Answer: say I have no intention of committing maximum emergency compensatory action, and I hope I never do. I feel that's a very codified response, you know, and it makes sense. I hope I never get driven to wanting to practice this concept or attempt this concept, because that would mean things have gotten a lot worse because things are already bad. So I'm maintaining fine under the horrendous conditions already. So I don't know how much worse it can get. But yeah, if I'm ever asked, if I'm ever gonna, what I think about this concept, yeah, I think that'll be my codified response. But I definitely think the concept could be constructive. Yeah, and this part right here, 398, the basic compensatory codes for killing, question mark. So I guess he's even pondering to himself, are these the laws of killing or something along those lines. And there's 9 points here that all victims should read at least once. So this is why you should buy the book at producejustice.com. But I'm gonna read number 5 because if this was understood by victims of racism on a large scale, no, if it was understood by all victims of racism, then we would have put an end to a lot of so-called black on black crime, or a lot of to the reality of how successful white people have trained us to kill each other. So bullet point number 5 would definitely put an end, would really thwart that racist programming we've been given that propels us to kill each other in a form of game banging or whatever we want to call it. So again, 5 says, if you kill a person willfully, deliberately, and unjustly, ask for no mercy, expect no mercy, and accept no mercy from any person. And yeah, I just really thought that was constructive, because just if we're conditioned in this system, we are led to believe that we can kill a person and get away with it through our through being like cunning cunningly deceitful by covering up the murder, the killing, or we may be able to get some sort of mercy or pity by saying, I'm sorry, or I now know what I did was wrong, or I understand now what I did what was wrong. And sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes these words help to minimize or diminish so-called punishment that a person receives for killing people. But if you want to like kill people, we should really be about following these compensatory codes for killing, and white people as well, because they just kill anything for any reason that they can and that they want, it seems. So they really need to stop killing together, or only kill racist white supremacists to help us produce a system of justice. That's the only reason a white person should be killing anybody. That may be incorrect.
Yeah, I think with that, I feel that if non-white people's, Black people, started following that immediately, like start making that part of their code, regardless of whether or not white people are doing it. I feel like that would greatly go towards ending racism, white supremacy, and establishing a system of justice. So I say, what I mean is, when Black people are killing people, gang banging, like you said, they need to follow this code. We shouldn't as a group, we shouldn't give them a pass, or try and shelter them from the law, try to hide them, because that only goes towards perpetuating racism, white supremacy, making sure that it goes on to last, it goes on to stay here. So I think that that's important to do, regardless of whether white people are doing it or not. I think it's also like practicing deep Black self-respect as well, because you're not lying to yourself that this person didn't do what they did. I think most people, if not all people, are very much aware that it is incorrect to take a life unjustifiably. I think it's incorrect to take a life if it's not for purposes of self-defense. So I think enacting this part of the code for Black people immediately would help a lot to establishing a system of justice.
Agreed. And just because this is the final covering of well, after this meeting we have covered all 9 areas, and just this area alone, this section alone could just do a lot to spare a lot of Black males from going to greater confinement. Because just having this part of code, or just having this book and reading this book, could have saved a lot of my victim unit from being in greater confinement. For I have 2 Black males in my victim unit who are currently in greater confinement. They've been in there from they now have been in there for longer than they have been on the planet outside of greater confinement, and it's all because they didn't have a code, and they were associated with so-called gang banging, and a person ended up dead, and now they're in greater confinement. Didn't get any mercy. They got greater confinement. And if they had this code, if someone was correcting it enough to like introduce this material to them, to anyone in our victim unit, just a lot of misery could have been spared. And I think that's this is how important this book is that this is like vital information that I would say all Black people need. Not most Black people, all Black people need this information, because all Black people are prisoners of war. No matter how much money or how hard they think they are, we are prisoners of war. We have to if we're gonna, we don't need anything in common but that understanding that we're prisoners of war and we should act accordingly. Yeah, and so I don't know. Remember when I said it, but I was talking to an associate who's formerly incarcerated, calls himself a gangbanger. But I tell him, if y'all want to kill people, just freaking go kill white people. Stop killing each other, or stop killing people, or go kill white people. But he told me they're not gonna go kill white people. Well, then stop killing each other then. But the racist programming is very powerful. We may need some sort of celebrity to tell some sort of famous rapper to name drop the code book to get more Black people on board. Maybe some sort of creator intervention. But because the racist programming,
that's a great idea.
I have seen one Black male celebrity profess to being familiar with the code, and that is Omarion. Now, I don't know to what degree he talks about the code, but I have seen instances where he has acknowledged Neely Fuller Jr. and mentioned the code. Yes.
That's very interesting. I very floored. Hope it was of constructive value, but that needs to happen. It needs to happen more, like way more. Every celebrity from every area of entertainment should be, especially if they're non-white, especially if they're Black. But this is me going into fantasy realm, by expecting celebrities to offer constructive help to the masses.
Sorry to cut you off. That reminds me of a conversation I was having this earlier with someone in my victim unit. We were talking about Dr. Umar, and she was saying that Dr. Umar kind of seems like a clown, but I'm of the opinion that you kind of have to be entertaining to reach Black people. Kind of reminds me of getting a Black person to a famous celebrity to name drop the code. I don't know how you guys feel about that. Any thoughts? I think to some extent you have to be entertaining for the large mass of Black people who aren't aware of racism, white supremacy, to get their attention.
You may be on something. You may be correct. And it's very tragic if that's the case, where we have to, you have to be able to, be entertaining for, but it makes sense. It would, because very similar to the programming we've been given, the training we've been given. It sounds like that will be one of the symptoms right there. Only being interested in something that can make you laugh or chuckle or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I don't blame them, obviously. It's racism, white supremacy. I don't blame us. But going back to area 2, when you're a small child, every time you're learning, it has to be entertaining. It's gotta have tons of colors, gotta have some catchy songs, so I think it's only to be expected that in order for most people to learn, they have to be entertained.
And that just goes to show how genius white supremacy is, because it captures us really, really young. Because the brain computer is very powerful. The brain computer of a baby does not need a bunch of pretty colors and noise to learn. It just needs a parent who's willing to teach it, and it will learn. But we have been trained by the white supremacists in everything that we do, even our attempted parenting. So we we do what they tell us to do, and then we sabotage our children while we think we're actually teaching it. And that just goes to show you the genius of white supremacy. You're being under mind control, not even knowing you're under mind control, like doing things that you think are on your own will, but are actually things that you have been told to do since you were in the womb. Like all these Black male and Black females who go out and get all these expensive clothes and jewelry. They think that's their personality, that's their style, but their style has been programmed by white people. It's really interesting, really genius. It's the crafting of the system. And so it would be a wonderful day when white people use their intellect and genius to produce a system of justice and or to help us to do it, because yeah, they're clearly smart enough to do it, but they don't want to do it. They have the brain power, not the willpower. Case in point, 2021, white supremacy still here. But I think we could get into closing comments and seeing like folks have things to share from the final area. Not much to share from the final area. So if you would like to share a closing comment, please chime in.
My closing comment is that MECA should always be your final act of, if you don't feel like you did all you can do as far as the situation occurs under white supremacy. But I hope in future, as for now, and people eventually reading the code book, that it does not come to the point where they feel like they need to act on MECA. I mean, Neely Fuller wrote it, but I don't think he, as old as he is, he's not acting on MECA. So I feel like if he can have the purpose to try to end white supremacy, then we should always walk in our purpose, because our purpose is bigger than us.
Well said. Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
Conserve and preserve your ammunition, meaning your melanin. I know it's getting hot. Get outside and get some sun and have your own conversations with the Creator. These are trying times. And if white supremacy is a religion, then attempting justice should be also. I'm out.
Thank you, Mr. Ray 150. Very sound advice.
For my closing comment, Area 9, war/counter war, killing is not for fun, should not be done for fun, should not be done for sport, should not be done for glory. Killing should not be a mystery. And like Ms. Carice said, MECA should be your last resort. I think as moving into the future, as we attempt to end the system of racism, white supremacy, and replace it with a system of justice, we need to identify the things that are creating the circumstances that we live under. I mean, I've already identified it. It's racism, white supremacy, end it immediately. So concepts like MECA are no longer necessary. Thank you for the discussion tonight. I found this a constructive use of my time and energy.
And I'll go for my closing comments. Thank you everyone for the constructive business meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Kwaku, for your check-in, and you as well. I mean, my bad, closing comment. I always make that error for some reason. For my closing, it's gonna be from 399, another law of war. Well, so it says here, if or when you kill someone willfully and deliberately for a reason other than maximum emergency compensatory action, be also willing to say to all of the people of the known universe and to the creator of the known universe that I did what I did because it was the best and correct thing to do, and I stand by my work. If you choose to do willful and deliberate harm to any person or creature, always at all times be willing to stand by your work. Always be willing to say to everyone the reason for you doing what you did. So very important law here. It reminds me of all my days of being successfully programmed by racist man, racist woman, thinking that killing was fun, fantasizing about killing, and just not valuing so-called human life at all, like literally at all. And I would if I had killed someone, I definitely wouldn't have stood by my work at all. I would have definitely tried to get away with it or something. But yeah, it just places this book, this code has and understanding, finding my cosmic purpose has definitely allowed me to understand that I was just so successfully programmed by racist men and racist women. But the code and the awareness of the problem has allowed me to put a bug in the programming to allow me to become way more constructive and correct thinking, because killing should never have been made fun. Children, it's a great tragedy and travesty and act of terror that children are being trained to, like myself, are being trained to think killing is fun. And it's so in our faces, it's so sophisticated that they can just call it Fortnite, which is about gathering resources so you're able to kill more efficiently, have better advantages. So it's just really incorrect system we're living in, and everyone literally needs to have this book. Every black non-white person, every black person especially, and every non-white person who actually wants to live in a system of justice and has not been so retarded by racist man, racist woman that you are content with the crumbs and trinkets given to whatever classification you are, non-white classification you are, whatever. But yeah, this is yeah, this book is so important, and no wonder people in greater confinement are not allowed access to it, because they would not end up in greater confinement if they really took the code, formed a code, a counter-racist code. And Ms. B, would you like to share a closing comment before we adjourn?
No comment.
Alrighty.